reproductive stuff. And as I told y'all in lab, the reproductive system in the male is much more complicated than it is in the female. The tubular system in the male is much more complicated. And so the male reproductive anatomy goes along these lines. First of all, reproduction is a process by which genetic material is passed from one generation to the next. The genetic material, of course, is in the DNA, you know, and of course you'd like the next generation to be a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger, a little bit brighter, whatever, than you are. Just what you would like. All right, it doesn't always happen that way. All right, so there's this process by which genetic information. Now, sexual reproduction that is characteristic as we move up the animal kingdom. In the lower forms of life, like in the amoeba and some of these types of things, there's asexual reproduction. Just split in two, divide. All right, but asexual reproduction becomes the norm. Organs of reproduction, the gonads produce the gametes. What are the gonads? The ovaries and the testes. Gonads are the ovaries and testes. The ovaries produce the oocyte, which becomes the ovum, and the testes, like we talked about, the interstitial cells of Leydig, produce the testosterone. So there's the gonads. There's the ducts. The ducts, really the duct system in the female, there's the fallopian tube, there's the uterus, there's a vagina. The duct system in the female is much simpler than it is in the male. Trust me, you'll see that in a few minutes. Much simpler. So the duct system transport and store the gametes, which we'll talk about. All right, and then there's the accessory glands. Now, the accessory glands would be like things like the prostate gland, like the bulbourethral gland, like the seminal vesicle gland, which we'll cover. That's in the male. In the female, there's also some accessory glands in the female, which we'll talk about also. Greater vestibular glands, lesser vestibular glands, those are in the female, which we'll get to when we do female reproduction. We'll talk about accessory glands. But the accessory glands, what they do is they produce materials that support the gametes. That's what the accessory glands do. And really, the accessory glands in the male get the primary notoriety that they get, the one, is the prostate gland, because of prostate problems, prostate cancer, and that sort of thing. So that prostatitis, inflammation. I've had guys in your age who have had inflammation of the prostate gland. It doesn't have to be, quote, an old man's problem. It really, 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 really does not. Okay, it's kind of unusual in the younger person, but prostate problem, inflammation of can happen. It really, really, really can. All right, now right here, everybody. Male reproductive anatomy. Structures of the male reproductive system include, like, first of all, the scrotum. That's where the testes are. The testes, of course, they produce the hormone, like we talked about, the hormone testosterone. The testes not only produce the hormone testosterone, but that is also where spermatogenesis occurs. You don't remember this. You won't remember this, but spermatogenesis is under the influence of a female hormone. Did y'all remember that? Y'all don't remember that. It's under the influence of the follicle-stimulating hormone. The follicle-stimulating hormone of the anterior lobe, the target organ in the female, is the ovarian follicle. The target organ of the follicle-stimulating hormone in the male is the interstitial cells of Leydig. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. The target organ for the follicle-stimulating hormone in the male is the spermatogonia, the immature, the stem cell. It causes spermatogenesis. So that's where that occurs. Then, of course, there's the ductus epididymis. The epididymis is a key area where the spermatozoa will mature to become capable of fertilizing. See, for fertilization to occur, the spermatozoa has to, in the acrosome is the tip of the sperm cell, it has to have enough chemicals like hyaluronidase. The hyaluronidase is one of the chemicals in the tip of the sperm cell, and it takes a lot of that stuff. That's why millions of these sperm cells have to be released. Why millions have to be released? Because it takes a lot of this hyaluronidase to dissolve away and eat away the corona radiata. The corona radiata is a protective surrounding of that oocyte, and it's a barrier. And so there has to be enough of these chemicals like hyaluronidase, proteinases, they're in the acrosomal end, and they're released. And so that's why the sperm count, a male is said to be infertile if the sperm count gets down below a certain level, because it takes so many of these things to release the chemicals to dissolve away the corona radiata. And that's kind of the way that works. But anyway, right there, ductus epididymis, that's where they, the reason I mentioned that, we'll come back to that in a minute, that's where they mature. The ductus deferens, that's another term for vas deferens. That's just another term for vas deferens. The ductus deferens, there's one called the ejaculatory duct, which I'll show you that. I'll show you what that has reference to. That's where the duct from the seminal vesicle and the duct from the prostate join, and there's a little short area that's called the ejaculatory duct, which I'll show you that in just a minute on transparency, or on a PowerPoint slide. Then there's the urethra. Obviously, there are three parts to the urethra in a male. There's the prostatic urethra, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then there's a membranous urethra, and then there is the spongiosum urethra that goes through the penis. So there are three parts of the urethra in a male, which we'll mention that in a few minutes. Then there's the seminal vesicle. Seminal vesicle is another one of the accessory glands. It contributes to the volume of semen. In fact, it produces about 60% of the semen produced by the male, the seminal vesicle. So it's just another one of those deals, another one of those glands. And then there is the next one up there is the prostate gland. The bulbourethral gland is one you've never heard of before, I doubt. The bulbourethral gland is also called the Cowper's gland, C-O-W-P-E-R. The Cowper's gland. It's actually at the base of the penis. That's one we'll mention that one as a penis, for conveying the sperm and also the urine to the outside of the body. All right, so those are just the structures. Now I'll come back to that just a little bit. We'll come back to another deal on that. But there's the ductus deferens. There's the testes, right? Obviously, and the ductus epididymis. The main thing for that is the maturation of the sperm cell. There's the vas deferens right there. The ductus deferens right there, and we'll get into. There is you see where there is a little bit of a joint. I've got a better picture of this showing the ejaculatory duct. We'll show you that. There's the seminal vesicle. There is where from the prostate gland. That's not a real good picture of that. I've got a better one to show that in a few minutes. All right, brief description of the structures. The scrotum, cutaneous out. Now, this is a cutaneous outpocketing of the abdomen. It supports the testes. Now, one key thing about this is that in order, there is a condition called cryptorchidism. This is very common. How many of you know little male babies where the testes was undescended? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody? Okay. It's not that uncommon where a testicle, one or both, do not descend. See, the testicles begin their formation way up here about the kidney level. And there's a little cord called the gubernaculum. It's kind of a funny term. The gubernaculum guides the descent of the testes into the scrotal sac. Now, an undescended testicle, there are two things about that. One, it increases the chances for testicular cancer enormously. Number two, in undescended testicles, if they're both undescended, the male will be infertile, because the 3-degree temperature difference in the scrotal area and in the abdominal area is 3 degrees warmer in the abdominal area, and that interferes with spermatogenesis. They will not form. And so in the cattle business, if a male calf is born with undescended testes, what the cattle person does, they'll either just feed that thing out to a certain point, have him slaughtered for food, for meat, or they'll sell them, because they won't be any good as far as being used to propagate the animal.